Hi, my name is Dr. Sharon Quinn. I'm a veterinarian and practice owner in Burlington, Ontario, and also Chief Medical Officer for CommuniVet, a virtual care platform for veterinary practices. There's no question that one of the biggest advantages would be compliance. I think that it's a tough thing to ask a cat owner to pack their cat up into a carrier every 3 to 4 weeks and bring them into a practice. And so for that reason alone, I think virtual care can really assist with compliance in these situations. It's also fun to do these teleconsultations from home. We see pet owners enjoying themselves, and definitely I think the veterinary staff enjoys the consultations. The pets are relaxed and moving around normally in their environment, and it's nice to see. The bond as well between the pet owner and the practice can be facilitated this way, and it helps the client to get to know the RBTs a little bit better too. The frequent touch bases as well, you're setting up reevaluations or follow-up calls every 3 to 4 weeks, and every time you interact with a client is a potential opportunity to improve the health of the patient. So other things may come up on the call that need to be addressed, maybe even simple things like my pet is throwing up before breakfast every morning, and you can make some suggestions. So I think there are massive advantages to having frequent touch bases with the clients, and as well as keeping them engaged and excited about the progress that their pet's making with the weight. At the end of the day, obesity is one of the most insidious and preventable and dangerous diseases that our pets face. And if telehealth can help us to facilitate simplifying this for the clients and preventing really serious and potentially fatal diseases in our patients, then it's certainly a very valuable tool. Specific to the CommuniVet platform, we have the ability to customize services within the platform, which is really nice. So you can actually create a nutritional consult. You can create a whole subset of nutritional consults. So you can have a weight loss consult. You might have a puppy kitten dietary consult. But you can customize that and you can customize the duration, the price, and which employees you want to be involved. So it's really simple, and that can be altered at any time. There are also custom intake forms in the services. So it makes it really easy to be able to customize. You can assign availability for clients to book directly, or you can have your receptionist book with the client. With respect to setting up at home for the client, that's really simple. I think obviously in a perfect world there's a way for them to measure their pet's weight at home, and you can get the pediatric scales are available on Amazon for about $50 Canadian, which is nice. Or what would be even nicer potentially would be if the clinic, maybe to start with, purchased 3 or 4 of those and just signed them out to the pet owner for the duration of the program, the weight loss program. That's a nice way to do it as well. So really up to the clinic, but that's all the tool that the client will need at home, other than a device, of course. And then if you're dealing with a larger pet that can't be weighed on a pediatric scale, there's no way to measure their weight at home. So a big dog, for example, they can come into the clinic for a weigh-in at their convenience, and then you can book the telehealth consultation at a time that's mutually convenient for both of you. So they can come in for a quick weigh-in anytime, and then you can have that more full discussion with them at a separate time. I think one of the most important first steps is to provide some educational materials for the client. So giving them body condition scoring handout materials, I think is one thing that can be really helpful. And Hills has a nice example on their website, something you could provide to clients. So it's nice if there's some text and then also some photos as well. And then probably a handout on obesity and the risks of obesity, whether that's something you type up yourselves or there's certainly lots out there that you could use. But educating the client is empowering the client. And when we have clients who feel that they're really part of the process, they'll get more excited about the whole thing. And hopefully compliance, again, is going to go up for you there. The next step is that you'll have to have the client take photos of the pet from home. Ideally, you want the pet standing and you want to take photos from above. You'll also want side views and any other angles they want to include. And if you're using a formal virtual care platform like CommuniVet, you'll want to look for something that has two-way file sharing. CommuniVet certainly has that. So I can upload my handouts into the platform. The client can also upload their photos in, and they're tied to that consultation, and you can look back on them anytime. So again, something that's kind of exciting as you're making progress is for clients to look back and see where they started and where they are now. You're also going to want the starting weight. So whether the client's getting that starting weight at home or you're taking it in clinic, you do need it to be able to calculate the feeding amounts and monitor things as you go. While you can accomplish the entire weight loss program completely virtually if you need to, I think best practices would indicate that ideally you have the pet in for their first visit in person. And the reason for that is you can do a complete physical examination and identify any other concurrent illnesses that might need to be addressed, like dental disease or skin disease, for example, that might even affect your dietary recommendation. So that is important. You can have them in for their physical exam, and you can have the rest of the discussion virtually if you want to, but I do think ideally they're in for that first appointment. And I think what we're going to see more and more as we move forward is that veterinary practices combine the two. So we're not using virtual care in a lot of cases to completely replace the in-person visits, but we're using a combination of the two to provide optimal care and increase access to care for our patients. So from there, you're going to do follow-ups. I think the first follow-up you're going to have around 2 weeks after you start the diet transition, and you're not expecting a lot of weight loss at that point. You're simply checking in. How is it going? Is your pet enjoying the food? How are you finding things are going overall? And then from there, you're going to do every 3 to 4 weeks as a follow-up and do a weigh-in at that point, and you're going to start to see some weight loss hopefully happening at that stage. The rate of weight loss is important. So while you want your pets to lose weight, you have to just make sure that they're losing weight at a healthy pace. So for dogs, that should be no more than 1 to 2% of their body weight weekly, and for cats, 0.5 to 2% of their body weight weekly. And obviously, as clinicians, you'll be assessing that as you go, but it is important to think about. I think it's important to try and really engage all members of your team in this kind of thing. Most typically, when we're doing virtual care, there will be one person in the practice that's sort of the virtual care champion or telehealth champion of the practice. But in the context of these nutritional consultations and management of obesity in general, I think it's important to have everyone engaged in understanding the value and importance. I think you can promote in clinic. You can have your receptionist talking about this kind of thing. And also, I mean, in our clinic, for example, we have a whiteboard wall that our staff did a mural on, which is kind of fun, and you can change it up periodically. You can do those kinds of things in clinic. You can also really promote on social media and on your website. So you can do contests on social media, before and after photos of weight loss challenges. You can also feature Pet of the Month on your website. So there are a number of things you can do to really keep your staff and your clients engaged as well. A couple of advantages of a platform like SmartVet is that there are customizable services built in, and there's also payment processing built in. So it makes it really easy to seamlessly monetize a service like this. I think custom services, when you're providing your weight loss consultations, you really can and should charge for your RVT's time. I think for some of the services you might create, for example, a complimentary puppy kitten chat with an RVT, you might choose not to charge for a new puppy kitten chat, because it might even be used as an acquisition tool for new clients in areas where regulations will permit that. But in terms of weight loss consultations, I think most often these are already your existing clients. So ideally, you charge for your RVT's time, but it's really up to you. You can customize the services and the pricing however you like. But I do think your RVT's time is valuable, and you don't have to charge a lot for these consultations, but probably attaching some sort of a price to this to just sort of emphasize that the RVT's time is valuable and that there is a value associated with these consultations is important. But I think that as we move virtual care forward, one of the ideas that we really want to emphasize to our veterinary professionals is that your time is valuable, and a lot of the advice that previously you might have been giving away for free on the phone or over email really you should be compensated for all of that time and skill and expertise. And so that is something that we're trying to help people to do. And again, with a platform like SmartVet, it's seamless. It's very, very easy to start to monetize these interactions.
My name is Becky Taylor. I'm a registered veterinary technologist, and I am the Director of Communication and Culture with Mosaic Veterinary Partners, and also the founder of BS Communication Strategies. And what I'm here to talk to you about today is how we can engage with our clients using online or telemedicine. And I think the challenge with that we're all facing in this current pandemic and the world that we're in, where technology is becoming more the forefront of how we communicate or the tools we use to communicate, what we kind of miss, or what we try to achieve, is to really connect with people. And that's what we do historically and traditionally when we're face-to-face, particularly when we're going to have a difficult conversation with a client. And in this particular setting, we're talking about the difficult conversations with clients around the weight of their pet. And so what we're looking at today is ways and what communication skills can we actually use to create a really connected dialogue with the client where they understand our recommendations and they're really committed to following through. Because ultimately we know our goal is the same as it's always been, which is to provide great care for animals. So on that note, we know that the greatest challenge of working through the phone or through a video conference or even through this video camera is for you to really connect with another human being. We know that connected, that building of trust, that establishing of rapport and relationship is what ultimately leads clients to following our recommendations. So on that note, I'm going to give a couple of tips and tricks and which skills you can use to actually convey that. So the first one that I think is really, really key, particularly if you're on the phone where you don't have a visual of the person, is we have to 100% be very, very focused on listening. And I know that seems like it's easy to do when we've got a handheld or something like that where we think we're listening. But what real active listening requires, whether you're in front of a person or you're on the camera or you're on the phone, is three things as far as I'm concerned. The first is that we have to focus on their words. So we have to really devote our attention to their words and what they're saying. That gives us the context. The next thing that we have to really think about is if we were to retell their story, could we do so in a way that puts it through our own lens? So what that means is good listening says, I can hear what somebody's saying and then I can retell it in a way that's accurate and with the same amount of feeling that they portray to us. And then the third part of really great listening is, can you ask a great question? And so those are the three main components of listening. You have to focus on their words, you have to be able to retell their story, and you have to be able to ask a great question. Now the real trick of doing that when we're online or when we're on the phone is that we aren't distracted. And I know many of us think that we can say, be on the phone when nobody's seeing us, and we can be doing other things. So we might be texting at the same time or doing something on a computer. But please know that people can tell when you're not listening, even if they can't see you. And we all know it's that sort of that slight pause when a person will say, oh, what? Or, huh? So really our dedication as great communicators has to be in the realm of reflective listening. So those are the three big ones. Focus on their words in a non-distracted way, to ask a great question about what they're saying, and to retell their story. So that's communication skill number one that I think is really key. That's key in all dialogue. The next piece that I think is really critical, especially in these conversations that might be a bit difficult or sensitive, and I'm talking about when we're referring to a pet's weight, or most likely in this case, their pet is overweight, and we really want to work with them to get their pet down to a healthy weight and get their compliance. And sometimes that's very, very challenging. So we need to, after we've done that really great job of listening and we've kind of heard the story, the next piece that we have to do is we have to be able to express empathy. And the way we do that, the truest definition of empathy expression is to say, wow, that must be really frustrating to know that your pet is looking at you and they seem hungry all the time, and you just really hate to not give them something where they'll be happy again. So that's kind of a twofold empathy statement. One is we acknowledge the feeling that they have, which is maybe that frustration or, the agony of seeing their pet looking so hungry all the time. And then the next piece is why they feel that way. So that's the difference between saying, oh, that's really hard that your pet is hungry all the time, is the difference between that's really frustrating or actually quite upsetting when your pet is so used to you feeding them. They really like it when you feed them and it feels really good all around. And it's really hard. We're asking you to maybe not do that as much anymore. So that expression of empathy, that ability to name the feeling and then why they'd be feeling that way, that really is that connection piece. That is what draws people toward us. That is what makes a person kind of go, yeah, that is how I feel. And then they're going to be much more engaged with you to think about solving their problem. And the problem in this case is their pet's weight. And so I think that's very real. And we know that clients are incredibly emotionally attached to all their animals. And that's the piece that we have to acknowledge. We know, we're looking at it from the health perspective, like, geez, this pet really needs to lose weight or change its body condition score, whatever the case may be. But just telling people what to do isn't enough. We have to really get the feeling that they have and really understand their perspective. And that's different than judging them. That's just saying, I hear you, I acknowledge that you feel that way, and I'm here to work with you to really enhance this experience, and recognizing that there might be some difficulties along the way. So that empathy piece, that expression of empathy, when we land it right by naming a feeling and then being real specific to why, that really creates a connection that we can't get any other way. And we can do that on the phone, and we can do it through the camera. And we really have to, again, have that focus and be thinking to ourselves, like, what is their feeling right now? The one added tip I would give you is to be very careful not to say, I totally understand. Because unless you can describe exactly what it is that you understand, it kind of lands a bit flat. Or the person that you say that to might think, I don't think you know exactly how I feel. And most times we don't. We maybe have an idea, we know what it looks like through our own experience, but we don't actually live in that person or that pet's experience. So I would say try to manage or avoid the I understand, or if you feel compelled to use I understand, be really specific to what you understand. So that might sound like, I understand that we're asking you to reduce the amount of treats that you're giving Rufus today, and that's going to be super hard because we know how much he loves it and how much you love giving it to him. So that's kind of the difference. So I think when we're talking about empathy, it's not enough just to say we understand, and we do on some level, but it's not about that. It's just connecting with that person and say, I hear you, I see you, and I acknowledge how you feel, non-judgmentally. That's the really important piece. The third skill that I think is, it is a dialogue skill, and again, this is a skill we use whether we're on the phone or we're online, is asking great open-ended questions. And what an open-ended question does, what its purpose in life is to invite somebody's story. And so when you're going to initiate dialogue with somebody about their pet, and I just use the name Rufus all the time, but if you're going to initiate a conversation about a pet and getting into that part about what you want to recommend, you need to start with a great open-ended question or an open-ended statement. And it can be as simple as, so tell me about you and Rufus. And then when you ask that question, you must follow with nonverbals or with silence, if you're on the phone, that says, I'm here and I'm listening. That's really, really important. So when you ask that open-ended question or that open-ended statement, tell me about Rufus. I was attending a nutrition seminar, and this speaker had a great line, which I thought was brilliant in the case of, particularly when we're trying to find out about how the animal is fed, is to say, tell me what Rufus eats from the moment he wakes up in the morning till the moment he lays down for his sleep at night. That is a great way to invite the story. And what the person will do is tell you all of that information. From there, from that open-ended, tell me what he eats from morning to night, then you can start honing in on the details. And you use reflective listening. So you said that he gets, his toast in the morning with you. Can you tell me how much toast he might be eating at that time? So that's where you can go from that open-ended question and you narrow it down to get your data. So I think of asking questions in two ways. The first one is the open, the funnel. Tell me about, or ask a why, what, where, when, how kind of question. And then from there, then I think, what data do I need to extract from that? And then I start sort of building the picture from that way. So we use questioning in two ways. We start with that nice open-ended, and we are thinking to ourselves, I really want to hear this story. Then when we hear the story, because what comes out from the owner, for anybody that we're talking to, is that we also hear what is their greatest concern or the thing that's sort of on their mind the most. And that can help us dictate how we manage the rest of the conversation. So we've talked about asking great questions, starting with an open-ended one, funneling down to closed ones or sort of one-word answer questions. We've talked about empathy being that part where I acknowledge how you feel non-judgmentally, and I think this is why you feel that way. And then the reflective listening part, which is focusing on the words, retelling the story, and asking a great question. So those are the skill pieces that we really need to think about when we are talking with clients, and certainly when we're trying to get an understanding of how we can help them work with their particular pet in the case of managing their weight in these particular examples. The next thing that we need to think about is, how do we focus on compliance, and what is our follow-up, and how do we get that level of commitment? So a couple of things. We end kind of with the same way we begin, which is to ask an open-ended question. And that might sound something like, so we've talked a lot today about what you're going to do with Rufus. What do you think are going to be the top challenges for you? And then we go to our reflective listening, and we really, really want to hear what they say. So we give them an opportunity after we've given all our recommendations, where we say to them, how's this sitting with you? How is this landing with you? Or what do you think is going to be your greatest challenge? Another great question to ask at the end of a consult is to say, what are you most excited about doing? What do you think will be the greatest reward for you and for Rufus? So we want to kind of tie the end of our conversation up with what they're excited for, what they're going to do, and what their plan is. And then we can kind of negotiate. The owner might very honestly say, I don't know if I can stop giving him his toast in the morning. Then you say, I hear that you're saying that that's really important. That's an important part of your routine. Rufus loves it. You like doing it. Maybe instead of cutting it out entirely, maybe it goes to half a piece of toast, or maybe it's with just a little bit less peanut butter on it. Whatever the case may be, that shows that you've listened, and that gives a recommendation probably within something that they can manage. So that end of the consult, when you're planning the follow-up, is really about, what can we do to make a plan where it makes sense to them? It has to be doable. They have to believe that they can do it, and they have to be able to say to you, I think I can do this. I don't think I can do this. And we have to respect that, and then we work within that. So at the end of it, it's about making the plan and making sure that they're part of the plan. When they feel like they're part of the plan, part of the solution, we know that compliance goes way, way higher. So in that follow-up piece, we end our consult with, again, reflectively listening what we've heard. We ask them a great question like, where are they at, and where are they feeling, how are they feeling about the plan moving ahead? And then you plan what your follow-up is going to be. Is it a phone call? Is it a text? Are you asking them to send a photo, the same photo with the same background of their pet in different stages? Do they know that they can call you if, 4 days in, they're still giving the entire piece of toast slathered in peanut butter and they just can't not do that? They need to know that even if they're failing, they can still call you and you'll come up with another plan. You won't be judging them or being upset with them because they're not complying. That's the thing that we fear the most, particularly in weight management discussions, is that we say, do this, they look at us and they nod and they say they'll do it, and then they don't. And we really need to get to the heart of why they will or will not do what we've asked them to do. That's how we get compliance. They have to be part of the plan. Because in fact, the reality is we actually spend very, very little time with their animal. They're the ones that are experts in their animal's care and in their animal's well-being and in their animal's lifestyle. And that's what we need to respect and build our plan within that. So I think it's really key that our plan has to include them. They have to feel like they're contributing to the plan with their great ideas and ultimately have a goal of how they're going to follow up. And then the follow-up is whatever is appropriate for your consult. Is it weekly? Is it a monthly check-in? Is it, for this first 4 weeks where it's going to be really hard for you to change your habits at home? I'm going to check in with you. I'll shoot you a text, on Thursday morning, every Thursday morning, or something that they can rely on that kind of helps hold them accountable and their pet accountable. I hope all of these tips have helped make some of these difficult conversations a little bit easier, and where we can ensure that we get really good compliance ultimately, so we get these pets that are maybe packing a little extra weight that we know is a real struggle for them health-wise, that the owners can buy into that convincingly and in a way that they will follow through with our recommendations, and ultimately we get pets that are at a better weight and that are feeling better themselves.